So, a few months ago, Sennheiser released their updated HD450BT ANC headphones. And now we have the new Sony WH-CH710N ANC headphones. And if you're looking to getting a pair of $200 ANC headphones, then these two are perhaps the two most popular options out there. So, if you're looking into getting a pair of $200 entry-level ANC headphones, let's see which one's right for you, because these two headphones are very different from one another. So, like I just mentioned, both of these headphones retail for $200, but both of these headphones' predecessors, like the HD 4.50 BTNC and the WH-CH710N, routinely went on sale for around $130 or $150, and they both also went on sale for ridiculous prices on major shopping holidays. So, I do expect both of these headphones to get the same treatment as well. So, if you want to pick either of these headphones up, they will be linked down below. And if you want to learn more about either of these headphones, please watch their full reviews, because we're only going to be going over their main differences. Now, the first most obvious difference between these two headphones is that the Sennheisers come included with a carrying case, whereas the Sonys don't. Now, I think that this is a real shame because the WH-CH710Ns are one of the few $200 ANC headphones out there that don't come included with any kind of case. Now, granted, the carrying case that comes included with the HD450BTs isn't a hard shell case, but at least it is something. But even if you do plan on commuting a lot with the HD450BTs, I don't even think that you really need a hard shell carrying case because these headphones are extremely rugged. And that brings us to the build quality of these headphones. The build quality on the HD450BTs simply put the 710Ns to shame. These headphones have very dense and sturdy plastic body panels, they're silent whenever you handle them, and overall they're just very durable. Whereas with the 710Ns, they do have improved build quality from their predecessors because the 700Ns really like to crack and squeak a lot whenever you would handle them, which is no longer a problem with the 710Ns. But I can't help but feel that the 710Ns feel a little flimsy because their body panels are just so thin. But the most important build quality difference between these two headphones really comes down to their leatherette. Like I mentioned in past videos, the leatherette on the 710Ns feels very coarse, and it feels significantly worse than the leatherette found on the 700Ns, which actually felt quite decent. And this coarse feeling leatherette on the 710Ns can sometimes get itchy when you wear these headphones, which is a problem that I never had with the 700Ns. Whereas the leatherette on the HD450BTs just feels way better. It's a lot smoother and a lot softer, so these earpads don't get itchy. Now, when it comes to fit, both of these headphones are big head approved, but they both do have a slightly firm fit to them. But the Sennheisers are a little more firm-fitting than the Sonys. But I can still wear the Sennheisers for long periods of time without having them feel like they're squeezing my head. They don't have an exaggerated amount of clamping force like the Beats Solo Pro. Those headphones are definitely not big head approved. Now, when it comes to the earpads themselves, the earpads on the 710Ns are significantly wider than the earpads on the HD450BTs. So if you have larger ears, you might want to go with the Sonys. But unfortunately, since the ear cups on the 710Ns are a little shallow, they might press down on your ears a little bit if you've got ears that stick out a lot. Even though my ears don't stick out all that much, the 710Ns still press down on my ears. Whereas the HD450BTs fit me just fine, but they do feel a little cramped. Ultimately, I do prefer to wear the HD450BTs over the Sonys, mainly because of their better feeling leatherette. But if you've got larger ears or ears that stick out a lot, you might want to look into getting a pair of headphones with larger ear cups like the Sony XP900N. Now, when it comes to tech specs, both of these headphones charge via a USB-C port, which is great especially if you're an Android user. And both of these headphones also have above average battery lives. The Sennheisers have an advertised battery life of 30 hours, whereas the Sonys have an advertised battery life of 35 hours. Nonetheless, both of these headphones should be able to go about 2 weeks in between charges. Well, at least they do for me. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, both of these headphones have been upgraded to Bluetooth 5.0. But more importantly, only the Sennheisers have simultaneous multi-device connectivity support so that you can easily hot swap from one device to another, which can definitely be very important for some power users out there. Whereas with the Sonys, they can only be connected to one device at a time. Now, yeah, technically you can split up the Sony's headphones connection so that one device handles media and another device handles phone calls, but it's not simultaneous multi-device connectivity like what's found on the 450BTs. Now, when it comes to audio codecs, the Sennheisers have aptX low latency, aptX, and AAC support, whereas the Sonys top out at AAC. Now, if you're an iPhone user, this doesn't really matter because you're going to be using AAC anyways, but if you're an Android user, you're going to have aptX support at your disposal with the Sennheisers, because right now it kind of looks like Sony's done with aptX support. But more importantly, when it comes to watching movies or videos on your phone, both of these headphones have zero latency whenever you're using apps like Netflix or Disney Plus or HBO Now on both an iPhone or an Android device. But both of these headphones do have a slight latency to them whenever you try to watch YouTube videos on them. The 710Ns have a slight latency whenever you're watching YouTube videos on either an iPhone or an Android device, but you can always get rid of that latency on an Android device if you turn off AAC on these headphones. Whereas the Sennheisers only have a slight latency to them whenever you try to watch YouTube videos on an iPhone. But finally, I do want to point out that both of these headphones still have an audio jack. Now, I know this might sound simple, but I do want to point it out because some companies are starting to get rid of the audio jack on some of their headphones. Specifically, Sennheiser got rid of the audio jack on their HD 350BTs, which are a cheaper and non-ANC version of these headphones. And finally, the USB-C port on both these headphones are strictly used for charging. You can't use the USB-C port on these headphones as a wired connection, like you can with the Sennheiser Momentum 3s. But now let's talk about listening to music with these headphones, because these headphones sound very different from one another. First off, I want to point out that the 710Ns no longer connect to Sony's headphones app like their predecessors did. So now you can't customize the EQ on the 710Ns to your liking. And ironically, now the HD 450BTs do connect to Sennheiser's app so that you can somewhat customize their EQ, which is something their predecessors didn't do. So the 710Ns losing app support is a step backwards, especially in 2020. But nonetheless, the 710Ns have a very bass-heavy EQ to them, which personally I'm not a fan of. If you want to actually hear your music with these headphones or hear what people are saying when you're watching movies with these headphones, you gotta crank their volume all the way up so that you can actually hear the mids and vocals. Because if you use these headphones at a lower volume, the bass on these headphones can be very overpowering. And even though these headphones have a bass-heavy sound signature, the bass on these headphones isn't going to physically rattle your head all that much like their predecessors do. The bass on these headphones is mostly on the audible side, so for me, I am not a fan of how these headphones sound, because they sound a little too shallow for my taste. Whereas the HD 450BTs sound all around better when it comes to both their sound signature and overall performance. Now, even though you can adjust these headphones' EQ, I actually think they sound best when they're set to their stock EQ. With their stock EQ, the HD 450BTs have prominent vocals and mids, and the bass comes in when it has to. But again, the bass on the HD 450BTs is mostly on the audible side, like with the 710Ns. These headphones are going to physically rattle your head, but not a whole lot. But the HD 450BTs not only have a brighter EQ where you can actually hear the mids and vocals, but they also have better performance because they have much better instrument separation and a much wider soundstage than the 710Ns. With the 710Ns, everything sounds very close together. All you really hear is just the bass, some vocals, and all of the other instrumentals are just jumbled up together. So, plainly said, the HD450BTs sound way better than the 710Ns. It's not even close. If you're a casual listener and if you like a bass-heavy sound signature, then the 710Ns might do. But if you appreciate detail and clarity, then the HD450BTs are a no-brainer. So I think it's pretty obvious that I am not a fan of how the 710Ns sound. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the build quality on the 710Ns is nowhere near as good as the build quality found on the Sennheisers. But one area where the 710Ns really outperforms the HD450BTs is when it comes to their active noise cancellation. But so that you can see for yourself, we're going to jump into an ANC test. Now, first off, I want to address why I decided to include the 1000 XM3s in this ANC test, because I know it's not fair or an apples-to-apples comparison. I included the 1000 XM3s here for the people that like saying that these entry-level ANC headphones block out just as much noise as premium ANC headphones for half the price. No, they don't. But with that being said, the 710Ns block out noticeably more noise across the board than the HD450BTs. And for now, the 710Ns have above average active noise cancellation performance for entry-level $200 ANC headphones, because they also managed to outperform their older brothers, the Sony XP900Ns, slightly. Ultimately, the ANC on these headphones is useful for like when you're on a bus or in a chatty office or in a mess hall. But if you're looking for a pair of ANC headphones to constantly fly with, then you might want to look into getting yourself a pair of premium ANC headphones. But nonetheless, the ANC on both of these headphones perform very well because they have zero hissing in the background and they also do a very good job of blocking out wind noise. But more importantly, both of these headphones have zero cabin pressure, which is actually one of the biggest improvements found on the HD450BTs from their predecessors. But one feature that's entirely lacking on the HD450BTs that is found on the 710Ns is an ambient mode. With the 710Ns, you can have them pump in some of the ambient sound around you so that you can still be aware of your surroundings when you're walking around the city, or if you're watching Ozark at home, you can still hear when someone calls your name. Just keep in mind that you can't customize how much ambient sound these headphones let in, like you can with Sony's more premium headphones. But nonetheless, the ambient mode on the 710Ns is really good because, again, they do a really good job of rejecting wind noise, but more importantly, it sounds natural and there's zero hissing in the background. But finally, here's the microphone test, and the microphones on both of these headphones aren't the best. But I do think the microphone on the 710Ns does sound a little worse, mainly because they have a lot of amplification to them, but they still sound shallow. Whereas the microphone on the HD450BTs don't have nearly as much amplification to them, but they still sound a little shallow. Nonetheless, I do think the microphone on the HD450BTs is at least usable. So with all that being said, these headphones are very different from one another. The Sennheiser HD450BTs have way better build quality and they sound much better, whereas the 710Ns have far better performing active noise cancellation and they also have an ambient mode. But the 710Ns don't sound all that great in my opinion, and you're stuck with their stock EQ. Overall, the 710Ns are decent, but if I had to choose one, then I would go with the Sennheisers because of their better sound and build quality. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.